Good morning, this is Trisha. I want to talk about what I know being transgender means, and not as a part of some political creation like LGBT and their commonly dispersed narratives through mass media, which seem to do more to confuse the issue than actually bring about understanding. So everyone continues to run around with faith and beliefs and no understanding. I just wanted to kind of quickly, if I can, go through some of the reasons that have led me to see things the way that I do here. I've done a simple search for transgender brain structure differences, and there are many studies that are just within the last couple of years. There's tons of new research being done right now. And you can see a lot of these are, well, there's a government website there, and I don't know, if you look at the URLs, it can speak about the reputability of the sources of information you're looking at so that you have some context for understanding. But basically, I weed through everything that I go through for evidence because I don't want to still be caught up having a belief and not understanding. And it's certainly relevant to me because I grew up crocheting with my grandma and talking for hours as my favorite thing to do, rather than being out with the boys, risking breaking fingers and legs and arms, which never appealed to me. This was a search of transgender BSTC, which I mentioned in a previous video. There's lots of different studies that have been done on sliced brains of cadavers of transsexual people, and these are a lot of the images that come up with that and some information. It's just easy to look at Google Images sometimes to get information quickly. Moving on, oh, that was just a larger one that you could pause and read through if you want. This is Google Scholar. If you look up here, it's scholar.google.com, and I searched transgender brain here. And on Google Scholar, you can narrow things down with filters, look at the latest studies. These are all from educational institutions. These are peer-reviewed scientific documents that have been published, and there's so much in-depth information here. And if there's a word I don't understand, I'll just well, I can't see one right here, but all you have to do is double click, right click, and go search Google for that word, and then you get your definitions. And I often do that when I'm going through in-depth research. The thing that I keep trying to bring up that nobody seems to have any grid for is this image here of the electromagnetic field of the heart. Obviously, this isn't, this is just an artist's conception, but the idea is it is the largest electromagnetic field of the human body that extends outside the body, and there is a north pole where energy tends to flow in, electrical energy, and then there's a south pole where electrical energy goes out. And to bring this into the transgender discussion, I propose that identity lives in the mind, where all of your thinking and feeling, dreaming, everything about who you are inside is all right here for the most part. Although conscience seems to exist down here, there's a good number of neurons here that are not associated with the heart beating, and some neurological studies have suggested it's like a second brain, and that the human brain checks in with it every time it makes a decision of any consequence. It checks with the heart, it gets an answer back. I believe that's the function of our conscience, but that's digressing. The point is here that reproduction is what lives down here, not identity. And yet society and the narratives of political and money-driven and everything else that's parts of society They try to get everyone to think that they're identified with what's between their legs and where reproduction happens. But this is a copy center. This is where your body makes copies of itself, and you have to join one kind of reproductive stuff that's produced here with the other kind of reproductive stuff, and then you get a whole new human body. There's no identity. And as far as feelings, there's really only one kind of feeling that takes place down here. And everybody seems addicted to that these days, to the point it's just crazy. And they identify, and I don't understand. Because up here is the brain, this immense, huge amount of neurons, and all that takes place up here. There's even a lateral field up here, like this field of the heart, and there's implosion taking place here. This is where identity lives. This is where I've always felt like a girl. I always related to the girls more than the boys. Even as a little child, I just wanted to be around the girls because I can relate to them. I could never relate to the boys, even though I had the same reproductive stuff down here as a boy. So I say that this is where identity lives, and to have an identity with this, it doesn't make any logical sense to me. Now, more than just this drawing and my ideas about it, this video on YouTube, Thunderbolts Project, I've been following for years now. They go talking about everything from plasma cosmology. I forget, the Sapphire Project also is associated with these folks, and they do plasma experimentation in order to understand that energy flow that was in this picture, this toroidal thing where implosion takes place, and how that forms stars, planets, atoms, and human bodies. This is just a still shot I took of where he starts getting into the voltage, the electricity, and how it flows down through the body and through all these different things. Anyway, this video is amazing, and really every video on Thunderbolts is. But this is where you start to understand how electricity and magnetism both, they're like a diffraction or a splitting of what they call scalar or longitudinal compression waves. I know that's getting deep, and I'm not going to go deeper, but check out this video if you want to see. I mean, the muscles are like battery packs, and then there's all these organs that perform these functions, and they have to receive power. And if they don't have the power, then disease manifests. And this guy goes into it because he actually lived through a condition where he lost his ability to really even think clearly, except for about a couple hours a day. But being a very smart person, he found the answers, and he got himself better by fixing the electric circuitry in his own body. And fascinating stuff, and it relates back to what I'm trying to say about the human body being electrical and magnetic. He even mentions in one part of the video how emotions are stored in magnetic fields, and that's an area of research that I want to find more information on as I go forward. Bruce Lipton has been another great source of information for me. He's worked with stem cells for over 45 years firsthand, and he spent over 20 years training doctors in the university. He wasn't just a doctor, he was a doctor who trained doctors to be doctors. And this guy has some of the most, even some of these just brief videos of his are so amazing to help you see how implosion in a fractal set of circumstances, that you see the inside out version on the cellular level, and then the inside out version of that on the level of the human body, where it's shaped more like a tree than an egg, or a seed in a tree, or an egg in a human or a creature's body. There's this implosion that takes place where it's sticking out like lightning, or it's all sticking in the side towards a nucleus. Which is where reproduction takes place on a cellular level. And he talks about the roles of reproduction versus the membrane, which would be associated with the brain of the human body, which is where identity lives. And gosh, I tried to keep this short. Dan Winter is just one more mention I wanted to make. He deals with phase conjugation right here, phase conjugate, golden ratio, cause of gravity and consciousness, etc., etc. He has some proof of concept technologies that actually do amazing things. Therify.net here is one of them, and then the images here, he goes into such detail. He's an electrical engineer, and he does some consciousness work. Interestingly, he dates back to the 60s and everything, but the information that he brings out, and he solved Einstein's unified field theorem by the one thing Einstein never figured out was how to achieve perfected charge distribution, and that's what Dan Winter actually discovered. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. I don't think my video's going no more. Oh, it is, yay! I thought something was wrong, but it wasn't. Okay, that's it. I think I'm all done. So, Dan Winter's websites are a little, well, this isn't his. Anyway, they're a mess. Good information, though, seriously. And this is where I get my understanding of who I am. I'm the conscious energy that rides inside this vessel. And the vessel doesn't define me any more than a coffee cup defines what's inside of it. I'm what's inside. I'm not transgender. I'm consciousness, right? I'm the awareness inside this clunky thing that only lasts for a number of decades and then falls to pieces. And the incongruity between the reproductive center and the control center of the body that was wired up in my body and the bodies of other transgender individuals is not a social thing. It's not a political thing. It's a reality thing, and we're experiencing it every day. I've been experiencing this incongruity my whole life, and I believe it's for a reason. I believe that a person like me can come to understand that identity doesn't really live in either of these places, but that we're emanating into this body from this central point of energy in these bodies somehow. And I mean to understand that shit one of these days. Anyway, that's it. Good morning. Thanks for tolerating my ramblings. Hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.